Hi, everybody. I'm Allison Freyberg, and welcome to Lecture 19, APA References page. Let's dive in. When you're building a references page, you need to cite and you need to include all of the sources that have appeared in the body of your paper. Now, if you've cited a source 5 times, it doesn't need to appear 5 times in the references list, but it does need to appear in the references list. It's everything that appeared in the body of your paper. And what needs to be in your references list? Any published, posted, or printed source appearing in your paper from which you drew information or ideas. If there's somebody else's idea in your paper, not only do you have to cite it in the body, you have to include it in your references list. Things that don't need to be in your references list: personal communications, because they have a full citation in the body of the paper. General mentions of websites, like, the Toyota website or the Starbucks website. You don't need to include that in your references list. The names of periodicals or software apps. Now, if you want to find great information about references lists, and we're focusing on APA because that's what you'll use in your program, the best place to go, of course, is APA, and they have great guidance for, great tutorials for using. Okay, so this is the live link you can use to get to APA's information about references. And if you click on that link, you'll get to a table that looks something like this. Now, APA covers so much in terms of referencing, but what we're going to do is just highlight the most common ways that, most common citations that you'll include in your references list. Okay, first thing though is just a couple of matters of form. And I know this is small, it's okay. I just want you to get a sense of what it looks like. We're not going to go into the details of this one. You do need to start your references list on a new page. You need to alphabetize your references list and alphabetize by last name. It maintains double spacing, as does the rest of the paper. You do need to align left. You can see that. And then any second line is going to have a hanging indent. Now, you can use whatever software you want, but generally, if you're using Word or a standard text editor, you can usually, if you right-click on paragraph format, you'll see an option for hanging indent. Choose that, okay? And that just means that every line after the first one is indented. That's kind of opposite to paragraph form. Here are the basic elements of a references list. All of the entries need to have the author, the date, the title, and the source. So you need to be able to articulate who's responsible for the work, and your reader needs to be able to understand who's responsible for the work, when it was published, what the work is called, and this is the part that gets a little confusing, where can I retrieve this work? Because the source formatting changes depending on the source, but we'll try to get the basic rhythms down of this. So it kind of looks like this. So you'll have an author, maybe probably a couple of authors, and you do the last name of the author and then just the initials, not the first name, last name, initials. And then comes the date. And again, depending on the source, most of the time you're just going to put the year in there. But if it's a source that appears weekly or monthly, then you would put additional information. Notice there's a period after the date, and the date's in parentheses. Then you have the title. So what's the source called? Whatever it's called, It looks like this, and you'll notice only the first letter of the first word is capitalized, or if it's the first letter of a first word after a colon. The other words of the title are not capitalized, and that's only in the references list. Okay, and then the source. You'll notice the source, all the first letters are capitalized, and it's in italics. Okay, so that's the general form. Now we're going to go through, in a minute, a lot of the specifics. Okay, this is actually from APA, and I'm not going to go through it too much here. You can look at it. It sort of breaks down in a glossary what everything is. But as long as you're getting author, date, title, and source, that's the key stuff. Okay, so now we're just going to start our examples. All right, this will not be exciting, but I hope it will at least be useful for you. And as always, these slides do appear as a PDF, and it's a good idea to have them handy so you can look up stuff without having to deal with the whole APA site. A little cheat sheet for you. Most of the time, you're probably going to be citing journal articles. Okay, so what's important? Who's responsible for the work? When was the work published? What's it called? Where can I find it? Who, when, what, where. So a journal article, you can tell that here are the authors. Okay. And then there's the date. It's a journal article, so it's going to be an annual date. So you just need to put the year in there. This is the title of the article, Emotions in Storybooks. Blah, 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 blah. Then you'll notice only the first letter of the first word, and then proper nouns are always capitalized. But then afterwards, look, not capitalized, after the colon, capitalized, and then the rest is not capitalized except for the proper noun, the United States. Okay, then there's a period. Psychology of Popular Media Culture is the journal, the name of the journal in which that article appears. Notice there's a comma. 8, you'll notice it's italicized. That is the volume number. Then in parentheses, that's the issue number. All of this information will be found in the citation when you download it. And really, use any citation software you can find. You just have to manage it. There's going to be some errors, so you have to make sure you're doing quality control on those. Okay. This is the issue in parentheses, then there's a comma, and then these are the pages of the entire article, not just the pages from which you quoted or paraphrased. It's the pages from the entire article. And then at the end, if there's a DOI is like a permanent address for what the article or whatever it is you're citing. Most articles these days do have DOIs. DOI stands for Document Object Identifier. Right? It's like a phone number or an address. And you would include that. You don't need anything else except the actual URL of that DOI. If there's no DOI, then don't put it there. That's all. Nothing else changes. So you have author, year, you have who, when, what, where. So you see this where is actually has a lot of information. It has the name of the journal, the volume, the issue, the pages, and a DOI. Get comfortable with this citation because you will be citing a lot of journal articles. Sometimes you may need to cite a newspaper if you're citing the Wall Street Journal, something like that. And the format is generally the same. Author, date, title, source. Who, when, what, where. Who, when, what, where. And here's a few examples for you, and then kind of the general form. So we'll just go into this one. So this is the author, Carrie B is the author. Now, since a newspaper appears, this one appears daily, it's the New York Times, you need more than the year, you need the actual date, month and day, because it's a daily. Then period, then that's the title of the article, and now we need the source, we need the where. The where is the New York Times, and then you have a URL, okay? If it's an actual physical newspaper, you will have pages. Most of the time it's going to be digital. Okay, so that's a newspaper article. Sometimes we do cite whole books, right? You're getting something from a textbook, maybe. In that case, again, same thing. Who, when, what, where. So Jackson LM is the author. There's the year. The book is published in a year. This is the title of the book. Now you'll notice the title of the book is italicized and only the first letter of the first word and then the first letter of the first word after a colon are capitalized. So books are a little different that way. They are in italics with what we call sentence case. You capitalize the first letter of a sentence, right? The rest is not capitalized. So this is sentence case. If there's multiple editions, you would indicate here what your edition is, and then the publisher. Now, if there's a DOI, you include it. Basically, if there's a DOI, always include it in your reference because it makes it easier for people to find it. Right? Now, maybe this is a book, so the Sapolsky book here in 2017, there's the title of the book. And then you would just put the publisher. That's the where, right? Where can I find that? You can find that through Penguin Books. Okay. Now we get a little more complicated. Same kind of format though. Let's say the book is edited. So there's one or more authors who have collected essays from other people. So it's an anthology of articles by people, but someone has to edit that. And the editors usually write the introduction, set everything up, explain the purpose of the book, and then include all the articles, all the essays from other authors. Right? This is an edited book. So in this form, the author is the editor or editors. Second example as editors for you. And it is, a lot of your textbooks might be anthologies as well. Okay. But what you do is after the author, you indicate that author's role. In this case, editor. So it's capital ED period. And that's in parentheses. Then there's a period, year of publication, title of the book, not the articles yet. You'll do that later. This is the title of the book, and then the press. There's your general format here. Now, let's say you're using an article from that edited book. Right? Now that's written by someone other than the editors. The editors gathered those articles, those essays, and are including them in this collection. So here's where it gets a little complicated, but this might be a very common form that you're using. So I want to go over it. Same thing though. Who, when, what, where. It's just that the where gets a little complex. So let's look at the first example here. Oh, actually, let's look at the general form first. So it's the author of the article, the essay, that's in that collection, not the person who edited the book. Then the year. Then the title of the chapter by the author, right? So whatever that author wrote that was included in that collection, that's the title you put right here. Now the where, you have to say Okay, in which collection did this appear? And it says you do in, and then whatever the editors' names are, it's signal that they're editors, and then the title of the book in which it appears and the publisher. Okay, so here's an example. You have Aaron Botella and Lutbart wrote an article, wrote an essay, wrote a chapter. And they wrote it in 2019. This may or may not correspond to the date that the book was published. This is the title of their chapter, Culinary Arts, Talent in Their Development. Okay, so Aaron Botella and Lutbart wrote this essay. Where can I find it? I can find it in R.F. Subotnick, Oszewski, Kubilius, and Worrell. So those three people edited a collection. They are the editors. That collection is called The Psychology of High Performance, Developing Human Potential into Domain-Specific Talent. And of course, since that's the book, it takes that book formatting of sentence case and italics. Now, what's in parentheses here are the pages that the article itself, the chapter from Aaron Botella and Lutbart, where that appears. And that appears in these 14 pages from 345 to 359, and you do a PP period to indicate multiple pages. You would only use this in this case. Okay, and then the publisher, and then there was a DOI. So there's a DOI. Okay, same idea. Who wrote the essay? When did the essay appear? What was the essay called? And then where can I find it? It's just that the where can I find it gets a little complex in this format. But just do it step by step and you're fine. Sometimes you might want to use a government report. Same thing. Who, when, what, where. It's just that our where has different kind of information. So let's say it's a piece written by the National Cancer Institute. It's an agency, right? And a lot of government reports will have agencies as their author. They generally don't have individual authors. They're published by an agency within the government. So in this case, it's the National Cancer Institute. The report appeared in 2019, and the name of the report is Taking Time, Support for People with Cancer. Now, you'll notice that a report is usually big, and the name of this report then, because it's not a part of something else, actually appears like a book and uses sentence case and italics. And in this case, it has an NIH publication number, so you would include that. Then the name of the parent agency. So the National Cancer Institute is housed in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So now we're starting our where. Where's the NCI? Right here, under the National Institutes of Health. And how did I find it? There's the URL. Okay, so what you have now, when we start to get into reports and stuff, you have to say in your where kind of who the host is, where the agency appears, who are they under. Okay. Now, let's say you find PowerPoint slides or some sort of slide deck online, maybe in SlideShare, and you want to refer to that. Now, these are not class slides, so we have a different formation for that. But there's slides you've been working with online and you want to cite them. Same thing. Who, when, what, where. But here's the addition in terms of the where. So there's your who. If there's a month and a day, include it in addition to the year. The title of the slide deck, again, that appears on its own, and it uses book formation, let's call it, where you do sentence, case, and italics. But now your where includes telling people the type of media it is, and then who's hosting it, and then the URL. So Jones, J, it's the author. When, 2016, March 23rd, this appeared, this was posted. This was the title of the deck, the slide deck. I'm indicating that those are PowerPoint slides, and I'm indicating in brackets. And then there's a period. Who's the host? The host is SlideShare. And then, so this is kind of the host. You're gonna know that that's the host because there's the address, right? And this is the URL. And that's how you cite PowerPoint slides online. Now, a lot of times you're going to need to cite slides that come from class. Same thing, just a little different sourcing. So what we would have is author, year, title, type of media, right? PowerPoint slides, and the hosting site name, who's hosting, and where do you find it. So it's the same syntax. It's just that it's going to be specific. In this case, we'll do University of Redlands. So we have the author, we have the date, we have the title of the slide deck in sentence, case, and italics. We tell people in brackets that those are PowerPoint slides, what type of media it is. And we would say Moodle, since we're using Moodle, at U of R, that's fine. And then the URL would be, it doesn't have to be the big long URL that you found them on. You just do learn.redlands.edu, and that's fine. That's a little easier. Now let's say there's a YouTube video that you have to cite. Same thing. So let's say the author is Harvard University. There's the date. There's the title in sentence, case, and italics. You would indicate that it's a video in your brackets. What type of media? It's a video. Who's hosting? YouTube. And then the URL. Okay, starting to feel the rhythm of it all? Now, let's say it's a web page on a web news site. Okay, like Huffington Post, what else? CNN. Okay, those are the two examples here. Same thing. Author, date, title, source. Author, date. Now you're probably going to use month and day because usually news sites appear daily or change daily. The title of the article in italics and sentence case. Okay, there's always going to be a title of the article, the title of the story, name of the news website, and then the URL of the actual article. So, same thing, right? Bologna is the author. October 31st, 2019 is the date. There's the title of the article, sentence, case, and italics. Who's hosting? HuffPost. And there's the address. Same thing. Who's hosting? CNN. And there's the address. Now, if it's a web page on a government website, same kind of thing. We'll just use this like we did before. So we have the agency author, the date that it appeared, the title in sentence, case, and italics, and then the parent agency, and then a URL. Now, if there's, instead of an individual author, there's an organizational group author, and that could be any kind of commercial website too. Right? So this might actually say Starbucks instead of World Health Organization, but it's the same thing. It's the organization, the date, the title in sentence case and italics, and then the URL. If there's an individual author instead of the organizational author, same thing, except you put the name of the individual author. Date, title, and then the URL. In this case, there was a hosting site. Medium was the hosting site, so you would, like you would do for HuffPost, and you would write down the host of the article. And that pretty much takes us to the end of the APA references page. So, most important thing to remember, author, date, title, source. Who, when, what, where. And I hope you found this little lecture helpful as you construct your references pages. See you next time.